Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Fairfield University Alumni Career Webinar Series. We have put together a wonderful season of job search and professional development webinars that should prove to be helpful and informative to all alumni of all career levels. My name is Julie Tizzoli. I'm from the class of 1985, and I'm the Manager of Employer Relations and Alumni Career Development. Our webinar today is What's Your Story? How to share your story authentically. I want to welcome and thank all of our alumni who have taken the time out of their day, especially this day during the busy holiday season, to join us. As always, our webinars are recorded and can be found on our website at www.fairfield.edu/alumni career. The recording of this webinar will be posted in 3 to 5 business days. If you experience any technical difficulties, please email me or send a message through the chat box and I will try to help you. There will be a survey at the end today, so please take a minute to fill it out and provide any feedback and any ideas. We're also going to have some polling questions today, so I will alert you when those happen, and you can use your mouse and just click on the answer right on your screen. So we would appreciate your participation. Karen will be happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation. Her presentation is about 45 or 50 minutes long, and then we're going to have questions following. So please type your questions into the question box as you think of them. I will pose them to Karen for you at the end of her presentation. This is your chance to ask the expert. The question box is located in the control bar and will show up when you click on the Go to Webinar View menu in the upper right-hand corner. So now I am pleased to welcome and introduce our webinar presenter today. Karen Graziano, JD, is a graduate of Fairfield University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Communications and English, and a graduate of American University Washington College of Law with a Juris Doctor degree. She has always been intrigued by others' stories. She achieves her mission to help others develop their ideas in writing and quest in life through her work as a college professor and a consultant, recently launching Graziano CareerWorks, where she strives to educate and empower clients to develop and achieve their educational, academic, and professional writing and career goals. Karen also shares her expertise in the classroom as a visiting assistant professor in the management department at Villanova University, teaching MBA students in team leadership and group dynamics, an adjunct faculty member in the English department at Villanova University, and an adjunct faculty member in Newman University's Division of Business and Information Management. Please join me in welcoming Karen back to the Alumni Career Webinar Series. Karen, I am going to hand it off to you now.
Fantastic, Julie. Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. I'm so excited to talk to you today about one of my absolute favorite topics, what's your story? And so there I am visiting our beautiful campus recently. So I wanted to start off, first of all, just getting us in the mindset today, and this kind of idea of you being your own CEO, you having the opportunity to really project yourself and control over that as well, regardless of what your job title is. And so something else to really keep in mind is this idea of establishing goals. So at the very end of our time together today, we're going to be thinking about like where you're headed after this session and what you're going to actually be working on first, because we all know, we all recognize if we don't have a plan to move forward, then these are just really good ideas. And this is the perfect time of the year to be thinking about kind of a plan. Most people put together their new type of professional development plans in January. So this is really perfect timing for us to think about these things. So I selected this topic, what's your story, for us today because, frankly, as I said here, it's the most frequently asked question of all of us. And it actually, this question has a lot of opportunity for us to really tell people who we are, to transform their thoughts about us, to set a particular direction for us as well. But it's just so difficult. So I wanted to really break it down today and look at some of the most important kind of questions surrounding this. So first of all, why is it so important? How is it integral to developing your brand? How do we actually develop this engaging narrative, weave it into pretty much everything we're doing, from networking to just our day-to-day kind of work lives? And then finally, how do we share our story authentically? Because it's one thing to have these kind of ideas, but then to feel reticent about how we're actually presenting ourselves as well. So we're going to start with our first survey question.
Okay, everybody, so up on your screen, you're going to see the survey. Can you identify your top 3 strengths, skills, or qualities? So please select one, either yes or no, just whether you can identify your top 3. Okay, give everybody a couple more seconds. Great, thanks for participating. Fantastic. Karen, we got 90% of everybody to participate. Here we go.
That is
And
awesome.
I know, right? So I'm going to
Yes.
share the results. And
Great.
so 71% say yes, they can identify their top 3 strengths. And
Okay.
29%
All right.
said no.
Okay. Well, I mean, part of today for that 29% is seeing some of the other kind of strengths and skills out there. It's a starting place. And that 71%, I'm so proud of you already, because we're going to be using those ideas. So now here's our next question.
Okay, it's up on the screen. Have you developed engaging recognition stories that you use to convey qualities that you use in your day-to-day work? Please select either yes or no.
So recognition stories, these are the stories where, frankly, you are the hero. You are the main character and you are doing great things. It's not a self-deprecating story. It is a positive, you-centered, strong story.
Okay, I'm going to close it down. It looks
Great.
like, and here we share the results. Okay, so we're about opposite. 26% say yes that
Okay.
they have, and 74% say no that they have not.
All right, again, so for our 26%, we're gonna work on refining those and making sure that you integrate those stories into a lot of different areas of your professional lives. And for the 74%, this is fantastic, because by the end of our session, you're gonna have a lot of ideas to move forward. And so I know we have another question, our third question, and then we're gonna move into some ideas. So for those of you who, I guess, have developed these recognition stories, what are they most focused on? Like, where are you using them?
Okay, so up on your screen, you can choose as many as do apply. So if you use them in resume and cover letter, in your interviews, in LinkedIn and other social media, including Twitter, the elevator pitches and networking, and also your day-to-day work life, incorporate every day. So you can choose as many that fit.
And for everyone else who hasn't developed these stories yet, this is where, you can be using them. So this is what we're going to be talking about.
Okay, we're going to close that down. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, great. Thank
And
you.
here we go. We're going to share here. So 36% use them in the resume and cover letter, 50%
Great.
use it in interviewing,
Great.
18% in LinkedIn and other social media,
Okay.
36% in their elevator pitches and networking, and 41% use in their day-to-day work life.
Okay, awesome. Okay, great. So, I mean, again, lots of opportunity to incorporate more stories, and a lot of people, it sounds like, already have some good examples. And then again, thinking about how we can refine them and make these stories even better. So, Julie, thanks so much for your help with that. So, we're moving on here, and we're going to talk about the significance of these stories for your professional life, I mean, for your personal lives as well. So, I mean, this is really what it comes down to, right? This tell me about yourself, what's your story? I mean, essentially, why is this question so hard for us to really focus on and to develop some really good answers? I mean, it's really basic, isn't it? Because somebody is asking us who we are. And I think that that's the hardest thing. When I ask this question of undergraduates that I teach, they will give me their entire life stories. And then we have to talk about target audience and refining things and being authentic, but not telling everyone every little bit about ourselves. I think for a lot of professionals, I have MBA students, they just finished working on their professional development plan, my course, and for them it's another concern. It's really thinking like more authentically, about who they are, and really thinking their next steps and how they're going to get there, and that it's just such a thoughtful question, and it's foundational, and we can really understand why it's very difficult. So the thing too about this question is that we're asked this pretty much everywhere. So I was just thinking over the last week in classes, in a training that I just did yesterday, at the post office, at a bookstore, pretty much everywhere. Everywhere you meet anyone, they really want to know essentially what's your story. So we have to be able to modify this very easily and quickly for whoever it is we're talking about based on what they want us to know, what we want them to know about us. So when we're starting with this kind of I am, we have to be thinking about assessments. We have to be thinking about qualities and strengths. And the Strengths Finder, there's another webinar actually I've done for Fairfield that is available, and it's actually about identifying your strengths. And it's a really important starting point. So if we think about it, and this is of course we're in the holiday season here, so I figured we could incorporate some fun into this as well. Frankly, these are our ingredients, our strengths, and our assessments. And this in particular, I love this kind of visual of all the different kinds of strengths and where they fit in terms of influencing or being strategic or relationship building. I highly recommend that you look up the Strengths Finder and kind of see that type of information. I have the book actually listed in our resources as well at the end, so you can see that, because it is a foundational place to begin. And I think today too, most human resources professionals and a lot of workplaces today as well, they will do this as an assessment, and people will share their different strengths as well with their coworkers. So it's definitely timely to do something like this. And so I want you to take a look at just that listing. And I know some of you are already familiar with their strengths. You may have done this already. But if you haven't, I want you to pick out one or two things that you see there that you would say resonate with you. Okay, and next I wanted to show you some listing of qualities. This is a list I've used across different courses. It's actually from a pre-law book, but I just love the listing itself. And same thing here. I mean, I just want you to quickly scan through the list, identify one or two things that you see here that you're thinking, wow, that's me. I'm open-minded, that's me. I'm all about concern for others, or really about social commitment or concern for justice. And then I have more for you as well. So I have more in the success area and leadership skills in terms of motivating other people, adapting, leading change. So again, just kind of quickly looking through and identifying one or two items that you would say, yeah, that resonates with me. I mean, because essentially what you need to be able to do for your story is you have to select some of these different items, because they are going to form the foundation for your story itself. So when we do this, we have to think about as well this kind of shifting over time, that it may have been 2 years ago that you were kind of looking and doing assessments, and frankly those kinds of qualities that you had identified then, or really the things that were priorities most important for you, they may have shifted. And so we have to be thinking about our stories too, that it's an evolution, and that the stories that we may have had at one time might not really fit us today. So again, really thinking about today, December 15th, and like how these stories can really reflect where we are exactly today, right now. And when we think about these stories, we're definitely selecting them because, first of all, they are memorable. And so I want you to think about again and again just this idea of stories and kind of memories. Think about your best friend, when you were a child, and think about, a story, for that person. Are you going to think about that person in terms of like a static picture of him or her? You're not. You're going to be thinking about some really great stories, and kind of the reasons for that. It's really psychological. It's emotional. It's that we have a sort of attachment, and that when we think of a story, we're able to think about, it could be 10 different qualities, frankly, that story is going to show about us. So it's a way, again, for us right now to kind of step back and just think about that hold that stories have in our lives, and that kind of place that they can have for us in our professional development. So I wanted to also, make you laugh a little bit as well too. We're at the end of the year here also, so I've got our twins picture there. So I have another one that's just one of my favorites. And when I was thinking about this idea of stories and how they enable us to establish trust, and when we think about the definition of trust, it's this firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. And it's really about, and I hope you're going to laugh right now, so here's one of my absolute favorite commercials with DirecTV. And thinking about like use of celebrities, right, for stories, and this kind of idea that we trust them, that we understand who they are, we like them. And those commercials, again, I mean, one of the reasons why they're so successful is because they shared very short little stories, like what this person's life could be like, but look at me here now. So when we think about this, I just even think this visual is great to think about, that one part of it is a really strong story and compelling, and the other part of, say, that picture is definitely not. So these stories also make us stand out. So again, here I'm on the commercial theme right here, and you may know which one I'm talking about, but just this really great Geico, what they had done in terms of, getting us to think about things in a little bit of a different way, and using that great song from many years ago to get us to take a step back and kind of think about things. And it really, because this story, this kind of commercial is so compelling, it makes us think about, like, again, like being directed, taking the next step, how easy it is, right, to kind of take that next step. And again, really compelling to paint us this type of picture so easily. So these stories, I mean, we can think about them in a lot of different ways, that they clarify, they paint, they explain, they spotlight, they highlight. And I really want you to look at the language here and think about for yourselves, like, how, for you, what these stories are going to mean for you. Are they going to paint something? Are they going to highlight? Do they represent? Do they symbolize? The way that you articulate this is really important. So as far as how your brand and how we can think about developing it, if you have not had anything for lunch yet, I am going to torture you just a little bit here. So I have these delicious cookies over here in this corner. And our story, when it is all set and put together, frankly, that's what it's supposed to look like, that kind of visual. So we have to assess right now, what stories have you been telling other people about yourself? What do those stories actually say about you? are they the stories you want to express who you are right now? So I do tend to hear from people a lot of, frankly, self-deprecating stories, and a lot of the same stories again and again when I meet people, and they're not, frankly, the most favorable kind of stories, especially when you're first, say, meeting someone. And so it always makes me think about this kind of idea that our starting point should always be, what do we want to reveal about our character, what makes us unique, and that these stories don't have to obviously just be work related. You know, they can be any kind of interesting and compelling type of story. So if we think about this, again, as I said, I'm making you very hungry here, but think about it as getting those ingredients and kind of stirring them together, and think about this in terms of a process that we're on right here. So in terms of your story, these examples, it could be you shining, or a just miss type of story. So it could be about your best efforts or learning. These stories could incorporate your favorite movies, your favorite books. They could incorporate interests and hobbies. And so I wanted to give you an example just for myself that I like to use. So kind of a shining kind of example for me would be a professional development program that I put together for a university, and kind of taking that from just an idea on a piece of paper to a full-fledged kind of program. It took a couple of years to do so. If I keep going through my brainstorming, my just missed, this example would really make me laugh. This would be me as the youngest member of a softball team when I was a kid. I was the littlest and youngest, and some really the just missed part was that we frankly just missed out on winning a big competition. I definitely felt that I was at fault that we did not win, actually, because I missed something in the field, and it was really the reaction that everyone had on the team to me, and that made me not, frankly, feel so badly about what had happened on the field. Brainstorming again, movies. I love that kind of that creative underdog, or that idealist. Books, I will make you laugh again. Anybody who knows, especially The Trial by Kafka, it's all about a really radical kind of change in perspective. Beyond the Sky and the Earth is one of the most lyrical books that I've read. I teach that in classes. About interests, I love to cook. I have a fantastic recipe for beef bourguignon that I love to make, and as a hobby, photography. And so when you're brainstorming your story, we're starting with just some basic things about ourselves, things that we like, things that we enjoy, things that we would want to talk about, things that we would have fun talking about. So, and then as we move along, I wanted to share kind of the next step in this would be thinking about, what do each of these things say about us? That for me, it's about creativity. It's about this being youngest member of the team. That story for me, it's actually about being valued by others, and how that was a turning point for me, I'd say, as a real young person, thinking about being on a team and what that meant, and kind of caring for somebody who I was clearly the weakest link on that particular team. Being an idealist, mission-oriented, loving language, I'm very process-oriented as well, and being very detailed too. So this kind of brainstorming, the kind of, frankly, the fun that you can have with something like this. And so if I just thought about, if I took out just that professional element, I took out, let's just say, that program that I put together, I would be looking at a list here of different elements, being innovative, being creative, being mission-oriented, and all. And so this right here would really form the basis for a story. So moving forward with this, thinking about how you would be connecting your qualities to your story, that you would be identifying one of the qualities or strengths. You could be identifying many, frankly, and then looking at a story that relates to those qualities or strengths. Your story, it can really encompass I mean, sometimes up to a dozen different qualities and strengths. So now really thinking about the particular story that you're interested in. In thinking about this too, it can be a little bit of a shift for people. So I wanted you to think about, I love this visual because so much of who we are is really beneath the surface. And here we have this great little guy who's got this amazing carrot, right? But hasn't allowed, the rest of the world does not know, that. And I think about this visual a lot with people that they have these amazing abilities and stories, but they might not be comfortable or they might not know how to actually convey them. And really what we want to be doing is really leading with these stories, like really sharing with people who we are and what we're all about. So in terms of developing these stories, and a really nice, easy way for us to think about this, again, is think about a recipe. And for these stories, this is not, it's not that hard for us to be able to do this. If we think about these kind of career propelling stories, one of the things that a lot of you, I'm sure you recall, is this STAR type of approach. It's the situation, task, action, and then result. And it's used a lot in interviewing. It enables us, right, to get across what was the actual situation, what was the action that we took, and then how were we, benefiting, say, an organization or others. It's really interesting to see this. There's actually a lot of other ways to convey this. Frankly, all those other ways, we could just frankly distill it down, though, into situation, task, action, and result. And when we think about this, these stories, it could be a turning point in your development. I love the hero, that underdog story. I think most people do. It could be that we see patterns in our different stories that we have developed. It could be someone who taught us a really important skill that we are then like, that's an important part of our story that we want to convey as well. Some more ideas. It could be something that we've been passionate about in our work lives. It could be, a really funny story, again, about applying a quality that makes us look good, as well. So there's a lot of different devices for this. I wanted to also, in working with a lot of, MBA students, one of the things we talk a lot about is change management and how difficult that can be. And so I wanted to give you some ideas just from your workplace as well that could be really helpful, and I think that is going to resonate with people as well. So if it is, having to work in an area where there's been a lot of change in your environment, where there's been, let's say, turnover or kind of a forced kind of turnover, people have had to take on more work, technology shifts as well. So what are these changes that you're experiencing? Because any type of changes and how you're reacting to it make for a really, really compelling story. And so here are some of the things that you might be talking about. It might be the ability to develop trust or to put together a new process in your office, or you have a challenge and you need to figure out how to be really collaborative with that as well. Being a multiplier, one of my absolute favorite things to talk about in class is, being able to see the gifts and skills of other people and encouraging them in those gifts and skills can be, again, really effective. Some more ideas too: being resilient, being flexible, being innovative, being a negotiator. And again, for everyone here who's already, you've developed stories, I want you to think again about what those stories are, and do they really reflect right now, like who you are, what you're going through in your workplace as well, because I would think that all of you have so many different kinds of stories that you could be telling, and it's really picking out these kind of elements, right, that it's going to be very important for you. So here are some questions for you to kind of grow these stories as well. So, first of all, thinking about your story as an actual story. Who are the characters? What did they say? What's the dialogue? How can you make it, a really interesting kind of climax to your story? How are you going to engage people right away? What are those first few things that you're going to say to get them interested? What specifically did those quote-unquote characters do in your story? And what lessons did you learn? And again, I think that all of us have things that are recurring themes in our stories, and if we can really grab onto those themes, then we're going to be really successful with this. Some people also like to think about these kind of knowledge, skill, and ability statements, that you have a knowledge in, a skill in, an ability to do something. And I think that this can be another really helpful way of thinking of like 3 different areas: knowledge, skill, and ability that you've been working on too. So now weaving this narrative in through our professional lives. So we're going to have some more fun here, and in terms of communicating our brand, because frankly, you can't do all these things at exactly, the same moment in time. We do have to be thinking about like what you want to be working on first. And so I have some kind of visuals here for us to kind of break this down and to find out what's most appealing for you as well. So if we think about a resume, we're actually thinking of a menu, okay? And so this, again, is thinking about, how can we tell our story when we only have very few words, really, and we're trying to make it sound really appealing. So think again, menu. And so I have a couple of examples for you, and I wanted to just highlight the kinds of different qualities that I would be trying to get across, because I'm trying to maximize. I'm trying to talk about something that is, again, career propelling, and I'm trying to maximize the kind of ideas, right, that somebody's going to be thinking about me. So, in doing this, again, this is a program that I put together with One Credit Courses and a society as well, and I'm trying to get across that I was highly collaborative, I was strategic, creative, process-oriented, I had a timeline I was implementing. And again, in my resume, I'm only going to have so much space to really kind of get across this type of story. Another example for you. So I was the president of NAPLA organization. Right now I'm the past president. And so one of the things that I had to do is to think about the financial situation of the organization. And I put together a sponsorship program. And again, what am I trying to get across? I'm trying to be creative and strategic and, trying to show that I had to analyze some of these elements as well, and that I was highly successful with this program. Another example, there's a wonderful nonprofit in the area, United Way, that I love in Bucks County in Pennsylvania, and I created a nice program for them. And again, it's the same kind of ideas about creativity and vision and strategy. And so I highly recommend thinking about these different stories that you have, because you kind of see from my stories, it's a lot of the same kind of qualities that are coming up. So this enables us to really develop a really nice theme for this as well. When we move into LinkedIn, and this is really the buffet, okay? LinkedIn, and this is why I just love LinkedIn, because we have so many opportunities to develop stories. And so look at all of these opportunities, and most people are not taking advantage of all of this. So first of all, in our job description, obviously, we can explain. We can go from something in our resume that might be a little bit shorter, and we can fully use, I encourage you to use your entire word count on those descriptions. Your headline, a lot of times people have their actual job title, but I would recommend that you think more story about your headline, and think more about your, again, the story elements. Who are you? What are you trying to get across? Your summary itself is an actual story. So I would say that most people either don't develop that, or frankly, it's underdeveloped. Projects. What about collaboration? you have an opportunity to have all those pictures there, which is wonderful, and all those people that you have worked with. Endorsements, identifying those kind of qualities. What do you want to be known for? Right there again, it's all story elements. Your recommendations, asking your collaborators to recommend you as well. And then, of course, there's all your contributions. What could you be saying? How can you be sharing others' content? And how could you be showing that, again, you're a collaborator? How could you share great news? I love hearing people's great news on LinkedIn. It's, I think, probably my favorite part about it. And then, of course, how can you create some really nice content as well? If it's in just writing something up about your opinion about something, or if it's creating a blog entry as well. There's a lot of opportunity for us to share our stories. Cover letters we have to think of as a much more refined type of meal in essence, and it's really something highly targeted for the people that are receiving it. So wanted to build off of one of my earlier descriptions here. And so I had mentioned that I developed this sponsorship program. And so in a cover letter, I'm going to expand on that story, and I'm going to actually say something about how I had worked with our West Coast law schools, and I wanted to make sure that they were participating. And so I introduced this special networking sponsorship option for a premier event at the National Aquarium. So you kind of see in my pictures there, kind of, help to convey that for you as well. I mean, that's a premier location in the city of Baltimore. And so just, again, thinking about kind of high quality and other kinds of elements that this creates, but it's thinking, again, like highlighting being strategic and definitely being a collaborator. If I'm thinking, again, about this leadership type of program that I put together, it happened over a lot of years, and I would want to show that because I would want to show vision and I want to show hard work. I also am trying to show a cultural change as well. So I'm giving a lot more details. I'm able to, in that cover letter, really convey a lot more of my story. And these things can all obviously work together so that I have something very similar to this right now in my LinkedIn summary, because I want people to see that idea of starting from, frankly, just an idea, a blank piece of paper essentially, and what I was able to drive and kind of develop from there as well. Networking. All right, networking, it's kind of the cookies part of this. Networking I think of as the really, really fun part of kind of getting in and talking with people. And I will have to say right up front, I am an introvert, and last December I did a webinar for Fairfield on being an introvert and actually going into the holiday season. So I would recommend it for anyone else out there as well. I am the person, I'm not going to talk to everybody in a room. I'm going to talk to a few people, and I'm going to have really good conversations with them. So it's about transforming our pitch, though, into more of a story and making it so interesting and intriguing, and really this idea of wanting people to spend a little bit more time with us. And the informational interviewing, this is just one of the best pictures I found out there, to think about best recipes. I actually just asked Julie for her best cookie recipe earlier today, and the informational interviewing, I would say, should be a highlight for all of us, regardless of where you are in your career, going out and finding people that are doing interesting things. And it's the equivalent, those informational interviews, of asking someone, what's your best recipe? And it's a real opportunity to say to someone, I'm at a crossroad, or I'm interested in developing my skills, or I'm really interested in learning more about your industry, and or just frankly learning about what you do. I found it really fascinating to read about you, to hear about you, and it gets other people to tell their stories, which is important for us as well, hearing other people's stories. It allows us to flip that classic interview, okay, and really ask them a lot of good things, about their strengths, about their weaknesses, about their challenges. And if you're asking people about their story, it will help you tell your story as well, and it allows us to grow and develop professionally too. Interviewing, and it sounds like a lot of you, I mean, you are really obviously using your stories at those interviews. The interview, it is our formal sit down dinner, of course. When you use stories in interviewing, this is the positive feedback that you will receive, that stories are memorable, they're colorful, that someone can really see how somebody could benefit an organization, that you really understand who the person is, that they feel real, that they're very detail oriented, that they would understand their fit in an organization, that the person is articulate. I mean, these are all absolutely wonderful things, right? And I think for a lot of us then, it's just a little bit more about refining our stories and being even more thoughtful about all the elements, about adding quotes, about how do we start the story to begin with? How are we going to grab people's attention right away? What are the specific words that we are using? And I'm a wordsmith. I teach writing. And so every little word is really important. I wanted to add this part in about mentoring and shadowing, and I know that most of you, you're not going to be shadowing perhaps someone, but I think that you have an opportunity to mentor. And I think that it's a lot like taking someone to the farmer's market, essentially. It's the behind the scenes. And it's another opportunity, I would say, for someone to be somebody of abundance. It says a lot about you if you're willing to take someone kind of under your wing and you're really willing to share your own story with them. I think it makes people much more thoughtful also about who they are and about these bigger questions that we're talking about. And I think that helping other people really should be part of, right, most of our stories. Tweeting. If you don't tweet, I'd love to talk with you. Tweeting, it's fun, it's professional fun. It is, frankly, one delicious bite is what it is when I think about every tweet that goes out there. And this kind of idea too about every tweet that you send, it's brand making. And it's in little bites, but it's again really important for us. And if you're not on Twitter, or you have used it perhaps more personally, a great idea to really figure out Twitter a little bit would be to follow some people who are tweeting professionally. And by professionally, I mean I tweet personal things as well, because frankly I'm not a robot, and I want to share some personal things about myself as well with people. But it really is about, what are you saying about yourself? And it's story making. It's story making every little tweet. So that would be something I would highly recommend if you're not already using it for the new year, to kind of look into that. Then there's our day-to-day work. And I would say that this, out of all of these ideas, this has to be the most important. It's our attitude. It's how we're projecting ourselves. It's about being interested in other people's stories and really conveying that interest and having respect for other people and their ideas. So how do we actually convey our stories authentically and confidently? And I want you to think about, again, these best ingredients, because we need the best ingredients. The best ingredients, it's going to start with your assessments. It's qualities, it's the strengths finder, it's skills, the social style assessment is absolutely fantastic. I've used that in my MBA classes. My students really have been able to get a lot from that, because social styles are really telling you too, they're telling you how you are, but it's also enlightening you to what you're not. And that 75% of people will not fall into your social style. So how are you actually communicating with them, and how are you communicating your story? So if we start with that, we have to consider, right, and this is why I asked you, what are your top 3 qualities, strengths, and skills? So for myself, I mean, this is how I would list it out, and of those which encompass who you are. And so, I've done the same thing here to kind of really show you an example, because I showed you a few examples for myself that I would use in terms of stories, and you kind of see like qualities-wise, strengths-wise, skills. I was trying to represent those in my stories. If I had to bring it down, I always like to bring it down to three things. Kind of that creative developer achiever is really what I'm about. If a really nice way to think about this, I've done this in my LinkedIn, in my headline, where I have essentially my 6-word story in there about developing others, their ideas in writing and quest in life. And I would urge you again to be thinking about, like, how can you distill your story into, say, 6 words? It's highly reflective way to think about who you are, because for me, when I think of those 6 words, it really is the foundation for every single thing I do. We could get it down to 1 word. That's something that I like to do with clients. Where I will say to them, like, what's your 1 word right now? Like, what in terms of your story are you going to focus on? So it might be, for someone, it might be having more faith in themselves, or being more creative, or being more of a risk taker, in a really positive way, or being a relationship builder. So you can focus on specific aspects, of course, of your story too. Then we have to think about, the kind of instructions here. So what's your mission? What do you want other people to think and feel about you? And again, asking ourselves, is this our authentic mission or message and mission? And this really is akin to kind of that recipe, us kind of writing it down and thinking about where we're headed. Again, how do we want people to think and feel about this? And then, of course, it's our follow through. And look at all these different items we've talked about here, and how are you going to be integrating all these types of skills, qualities, and strengths into your story in these ways. We have to think about the goal. So again, if you are not hungry for a nice treat today, I'd say you should be, and you deserve one for sure, because what's your goal? What do you want it to look like? What do you want people to think and feel when you are sharing who you are in your story, on LinkedIn, in a resume, when you meet someone at the post office like I just did? And we have to give ourselves lots of permission for trial and error. So, for example, this little picture here, now I would love to think that I could, actually bake something like this first time around. There is no way that I would be able to do that. And, it's really nice when we even think about it, say, cooking or baking as just an analogy for these ideas. I found this beautiful picture of someone trying things out. It's not that the one with more flour is wrong, right? It's just how do we want to get it right? What do we like better? So a lot of these things can all be good, but which is the one that we're really most interested in kind of making again, so to speak? And then some last kind of items just about story, that people are always going to remember a story. They're going to remember it. If if it feels like a sales pitch, then it feels like a sales pitch. If it's a story, it's intriguing. They think they know you, and they know something interesting about you, and it's enlightening, and it can be fun. So we have our question number 4.
Okay, let's see. Bear with me a second. Here we go. And in which areas will you be incorporating or refining your recognition stories? Again, choose the areas that you think you can use what you learned today, and develop it. Either your resume and cover letter, LinkedIn, social media, elevator pitch, networking, interviewing, or your day-to-day work life. All right, fantastic. I'm going to close
All
out,
right.
share these results.
Okay, great.
Here we go. 52% said they're going to use it in the resume and the cover letter. 64
Great.
in social media, 64%,
Great.
64% in their networking and elevator pitches, 40% in their interviewing, and
Okay.
80% day-to-day work life.
Oh, that is excellent. Okay, fantastic. So now, and again, I remember I'm process driven here, and I need to know everyone is going to leave our session having identified one thing you're going to start with first. So, our last question.
Okay, choose your one thing, and that's all you get. You get to choose one of what you're going to work on. I see people thinking to themselves, how are they going to check up on me? Okay, great, thank you. We're going to close that down and share.
Oh, great.
All right, it looks like the majority are going to use it in their day-to-day work life, 42%.
Oh, I feel like this is a Christmas gift right now because frankly, if I would have to say the one place to start, it's actually that because it's our everyday. It's our looking at and thinking about what are the stories that we're telling people on a daily basis about ourselves. And sometimes I hear really negative stories that people are telling about themselves, and I kind of wonder why. So changing our orientation, our attitude about that is a great first step. And then we can really be thoughtful and look for other stories in, let's say, LinkedIn and see how other people are conveying their stories. So I wanted to share. First of all, I have references, and here is kind of a list of different things. This book, Tell Me About Yourself, absolutely is fantastic. Use this as a base for our discussion today. And the Now Discover Your Strengths, it has a strengths finder in it. Branding Yourself is a great book. This idea too, this what is your one sentence? Like I said, this kind of one sentence or your 6-word story, it's really compelling to think about it, your story, and distilling it down that way, and can be a great foundation. So I wanted to provide you all with all of my information, and all these little, wonderful, like beautifully presented kind of cookies here as well. It's kind of the idea of that's our stories. Our stories should be something that it's well thought out, it's beautifully presented as well, and really meaningful too. So Julie, do we have any questions?
Okay, everybody, the line is open for questions. So please share your questions with Karen right now. That would be great. I think everybody was listening to every word you said, so I didn't get any questions submitted yet. So
Okay. Okay,
yeah,
great.
let's give them a second there. And everybody, this is recorded, so in 3 to 5 business days, it'll be on our website, and you can go back and listen and grab some more of the information that Karen put out there for us.
Yeah,
To
and again, I mean, I'd love to be in touch with anyone. Please, join me on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. Would be wonderful. You can email me. I am finally putting together a comprehensive list, kind of reading list of different professional development resources. I have promised that to my MBA students as well, and we'll be doing that over the Christmas holiday. So if you'd like to get a copy of that as well, you can email me too.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. Well, okay, so it
I
looks like
know, I know.
most everybody is excited to go and finish some of their Christmas shopping. But we got,
They are
yeah,
great.
we have tons of thank you. Thanks, Karen. So thoughtful. Great to hear from you again.
Oh,
Happy holidays. Thank you, Karen. So I think you did it. I think you did a great job. So I hope.
oh, well, thank you. Thanks everyone so much. And again, you're supposed to have fun with this as well. And for the new year, I mean, while we all have Christmas things, I have to bake cookies, and we all have Christmas things to do. Really, it's after kind of that new year. This is what people are thinking about. And so I wish everybody a lot of luck, and please, get in touch, keep in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you, and
Yeah,
have a wonderful holiday.
thanks. I think the way you presented today hopefully will take the fear out of some people, and
Yes, great.
really, take the not feel so overwhelmed by coming up with the story. So thank you. You presented it beautifully, and yes, I'm going to go out to the bakery right now, and I will be baking this weekend too. So
Fantastic.
We
I
got
know.
to
I
be in
think
the
I
mood.
gave everybody, well, I was hoping to get everybody in the mood. I mean, it's Christmas,
It
so
is.
exactly.
Um,
Fantastic.
yeah, so thank you, everybody on the line. Thanks for joining us today. And our next webinar will be on January 19th. And it is by, again, one of our greats that has presented several times, Linda Van Valkenburg. And she's going to talk
Great.
about video interviews and how to ace them. So,
Oh, that is
yeah,
fantastic. What a nice jumping off point from
I,
today, too.
right,
Yeah,
exactly. So good.
great.
So I hope we see everybody on the next webinar. And Karen, again, thanks so much and have a great
Great.
holiday.
Well, great. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your holiday. Good
Okay,
luck with your stories.
thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.